For those who doesn't know me, I'm the director of eVisa Immigration. We have been established in Canada for over 12 years now, and we are the biggest immigration firm serving people from all around the world. Um, we work with people from different backgrounds, and we also serve people in different languages, such as Portuguese, French, of course, English, Spanish, and Farsi. So we have consultants and case managers from different parts of the world, so we can help people in different languages and also in different time zones. We have teams based in Europe, in Toronto, in Calgary, in Vancouver. I'm based in Vancouver myself. We also have team in Brazil and Tehran. So it's actually like a very good coverage. So it doesn't matter where you are, if you are in a different time zone or if you're in Canada, we can help you, we can assist you. And the point of this webinar today is to share the amazing news about what we can expect from Canadian immigration in 2026. And these are great news. And I talked to Patrick and Salpip that I really wanted to share with all of you because you guys should know what's happening, what is to expect, and what to do to get ready. And of course, one of the things that you have to do to get ready is to have your language proficiency test. So yes, get all the tips that you can, book your test, and have it ready. But let's talk about what you're going to be ready for, right? What are the opportunities that are coming in 2026? So here is what I talked to you guys. Something very important. We are also have been awarded for 5 consecutive years the Top Choice Award as the best immigration firm in both in Vancouver and in Toronto, where we have office locations. And we have been nominated again this year, and the voting is happening. So if you don't know our company, please find us on our social media. We have channels in different languages as well, and we'll be very happy to have your support and contribute to your Canadian dream by providing advice, information, education, and many more, everything that's related to Canadian immigration and life in Canada. Well, I already introduced myself, Director of Immigration and also regulated Canadian immigration consultant. This is very important. I see a lot of people taking advice from people on the internet, from influencers. I could consider myself an influencer as well, but don't trust everybody. It is very important that you trust people that are licensed to help other people to study, work, and immigrate to Canada, okay? And not only me, but my team has the regulated Canadian immigration consulting license, and we are here to help you guys in the proper and correct way. So be aware, don't trust everybody, especially if this person doesn't have the license and doesn't have experience. And here I can tell you, we have a great team, and combined, we have lots of experience in different kind of applications. So let's talk about what's coming in 2026. But before we say the positive news, let's discuss a little bit about what's happening currently, right? What's the current situation? So right now we are coming from a very downside, right? A down moment. People are stressed. People are not as hopeful with migration. Their requirements very hard to meet. For example, the points on express entry. We see very high points for people qualifying for Canadian Experience Class, even for other categories where we are having some draws happening, but we don't know when they're going to happen, right? So, for example, some occupations they select more than others. There was pretty much a gap in 2025 on the PNP pathways in most provinces, not all, but in the main provinces, for example, Ontario and BC, we had very little movement in terms of new invitations. LMIA became a nightmare for a lot of occupations, a lot of people in different areas. So it became a way harder to qualify. And people are, stressed, anxious, and you know, it is difficult to move forward. But I hope at the end of this presentation, you can feel motivated to have hope and prepare and get the energy that you need to invest because I'm really expecting 2026 to be a very great year for immigration. Okay. And something that's good to know 10 years ago, I was already working with immigration in 2014. We have a very similar moment, okay, in which there was a transition period. Government limited LMIAs, the government limited the Federal Skilled Worker and Canadian Experience Class program, was outside Express Entry at the moment. Then there was a big transition, was when they launched Express Entry, but 2015 was still a very weird year that we didn't know what was happening. And then in 2016, we saw things coming back and, lots of opportunities coming, lots of new flexibility from the government. And I think we are getting there. And it's funny, that was exactly 10 years ago. And I think 25 is a year that was not easy, but I think we are heading to a very great 2026, okay? But something that I wanted to say is every time you have a hard period, you have to take a lesson from that period, like what we have to learn from it. And I would say when it comes to opportunity, you got to be ready. When the opportunity comes, you have to embrace it. I talk to people every time, and there's people that are brand new to Canada, they're starting the immigration plan, or they're even outside Canada, they're starting the conversation. That's great. But there are a lot of people that are here for a very long time and they missed a lot of opportunities just because they were not ready, but just because they didn't research. Because when you are a new immigrant in a country, there are so many things happening, a new job, a new way of life, so many things that have to learn and adapt. And you don't think of immigration, but hey, immigration, your visa, your status is one of the most important things that you have to think when you move to a new country. So prioritize this. It's very important. And it's very important for you to know all the opportunities that you can embrace with your profile and, get ready to not miss that opportunity. And something that from the government, I would say the government is in a sensitive moment right now. They are afraid of being tricked, afraid of fraud. They want to, combat fraud. They want to genuine applications. So until they find that balance, and they are working to find that balance at the moment, but we are seeing a very strict review process. Okay. And people sometimes don't take immigration and their application in the paperwork as serious. And guys, it is very important to be very, very careful with all documents. Sometimes it's not only the information itself, it's how you present, how you structure, how you explain, because the government of Canada does not do interviews. They get your paperwork and they have to understand exactly what you are meaning with that paperwork and if you are really complying with all the requirements of the regulation. So being prepared is also like not only having a good strategy, but being prepared to provide the best paperwork possible, right? So if you choose to work with a professional organization like us, with a licensed consultant, we can help you with that. Prepare a good application package so that we increase your chances of success, okay? And guys, Canada has the eyes open for fraud right now. So don't be creative, okay? Canada really is a great country because people follow the rules here. And you should too if you are preparing to move to Canada. So make sure that you prepare your plan within the lines, like as you should. Okay. Well, so let's talk about the news about 2026. And there are a lot of information about what it is coming. I want to start with the message from the minister, okay? Well, so first, Canada is focusing on economic immigration. And from the 380,000 new immigrants expected for 2026, 65% of that number is through economic immigration. Who are the people coming for economic immigration? People that come as a student and then transition to the post-graduation work permit, they are economic immigration because they're coming to work, right? But they don't count as an immigrant, but they are candidates for the economic migration. And then people that are interested in applying for express entry, provincial nominee programs, um, regional programs such as the Atlantic Immigration Program, the Rural Community Immigration programs. So all these programs are under the economic immigration class, okay? And Canada has pathways for those who are overseas through the French priority and through the in-demand occupation. But the main focus of the Canadian government is to assist those who are in Canada temporarily through transition to permanent residency. So that's why it was very good to see that when Patrick asked you guys where we were from, the biggest majority of us are already in Canada. Okay, so that's good news for you guys. Canada is really looking and putting that in the statement that they want to prioritize this transition. Okay. There is one of the highlights that they say they wanted to reduce the number of temporary residents in Canada. Okay. We will talk more about that in the next slide because the government's being sneaky a little bit about that. Okay. I will talk more about it. And Canada will continue to prioritize people that speak French and wanted to settle outside Quebec. But because all the provinces except Quebec speak English, English is still necessary, even though when you apply for the French category, okay? You only have the 50 bonus points that give you give you a head start in the points if you have both English and French. And then the biggest news is the Canada will have a one-time measure. Sorry. Okay. Let me jump here. I'll go back. This is the biggest news. Canada will have a one-time measure to help 33,000 temporary workers in Canada to transition to permanent residency in 2026 and 2027. This is great. This is absolutely the greatest opportunity that everybody is waiting for. People that are in Canada for more than 4 or 5 years, everybody was looking for that opportunity. We had the TR to PR pathway in 2021, and it
Hey,
was a
Marilee,
yes,
is there a way to make the slide bigger?
this
Like,
lot bigger.
because
Well,
what I see is like your face and then the slide, and they're both like equal size. So there's like two screens. Is there any way you can make like the slide bigger so that some people are saying
of
that they
course,
can't read the text?
I
Go back
can.
to
But
Yeah,
go back to your slides. I think now you're out of the slides. Just go back there.
okay. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Perfect.
That's good. Perfect. Awesome.
Thank you. Sorry, guys. I think was a setup here at the beginning. Okay, so that's the greatest opportunity we have expecting us for 2026, the TR to PR pathway. Okay, and we don't know yet all the details of this program. There are two different possible pathways that the government can choose from. One is to create a completely different program, as they did in 2021, with specific criteria, specific requirements, and they will announce the requirements and they will announce the date that they will open for you to submit the application. And if you take as a baseline what happened in 2021, they announced the criteria in 14th of April 2021, and the program opened in May, actually was on May 6, 2021. So like it was pretty much 20 days for people to understand the requirements and prepare the application and prepare all the documents, including, for example, the language proficiency test. So what happened, and Patrick also knows about it, people were trying, like as soon as the government announced the criteria, people were trying to book the test because they didn't have the test ready. And then like in few hours, there was no test availability in Canada. All the spots were taken. And people were considering even traveling elsewhere to do the test to qualify for the program. So you gotta be ready. This was one example, but there are other documents that you need. For example, you may need your education credential assessment. It can take 2 to 3 months to get ready. You may need translation of your documents, translation of documents. You can get fairly fast in 5, 10 business days, but if there is a high demand of orders, all the translators will be also very busy, and that may increase the time or increase the price, right? So don't be that person that will wait to see the requirements to get ready. Because if you are already in Canada pursuing an immigration pathway, you're not going to waste that preparation. All the documents that you're going to use for a possible TR to PR pathway, it is also the same documents that are going to use for most of the economic migration pathways. Because as an economic immigrant, education, your work experience, you have to have language, you have to have your personal documents organized. So that baseline has to be ready no matter what, right? So we do have a package that's called PR ready because, gotta be ready. That has to be your priority once you are in Canada or planning to come to Canada. You gotta be ready. Like I have a great number of clients that even that when they are overseas and they start planning their transition to Canada, even as a student, they already start organizing their documentation. That's great because there are a lot of documents that are easy for you to prepare when you are overseas because you can talk to former employers, because you can go to your university and ask your documents. So be ready for this opportunity, okay? If that happens anywhere close to what we had in 2021, a lot of people were left out because they were not ready, okay? Another thing that happened in 2021 was a big draw, Canadian Experience Class. At the time, the government did one draw and they invited everybody that had Canadian Experience Class in the Express Entry pool, okay? And at the time, the cutoff points were 75, which is nothing. It was minimum. And 27,000 people were invited at once, okay? We don't know it's going to be like that, but also can happen, right? So another reason that is not only recommended that you are ready with your baseline documents prepared, but also that you create an express and profile because we don't know yet how the government is going to select these 33,000 people, what's going to be the criteria. But either way, you have to be ready. And something that's important to also know is that if 33,000 people, okay, can find the immigration pathway. And the important thing is this 33,000 is not included in the 380,000 target that the government has for 2026, okay? So to be honest, the government's like including a narrative that's, hey, we are going to reduce immigration because that's the current pressure that they have from general population. But they said, hey, it's going to be 380,000. That's a reduction. But it's 380,000 plus 33 and plus other numbers. So it's a little bit tricky. It's a little bit sneaky. That's what I mentioned before. Okay. But what I wanted to say is there are plenty of opportunities through the economic category, including PNP that's coming back. So in 2025, for example, the quota for PNP was 55,000, which was a reduction of 50% of the previous quota that they have. And this resulted in a lot of PNPs being very hard and people not really, unless they were very, very, very specific profiles, they were not very using the provincial nominee program, okay? But provincial nominee programs coming back in 2026. We can see here that the quota from 55,000 to 91,500 pretty much reached the previous level, okay? So be ready as well for PNP because it's coming back. And at any time now, the provincial governments can start selecting people through their PNP pathways, okay? And then we also have a great quota for the express entry, 109,000 people. And as we see the greater distribution of different quota for different programs, right now what's happening is we had a similar number in 2025, but because we didn't have any other pathway, PNP was limited. there was no peer-to-peer pathway, right? Everything was federal. So it was limited, put so much pressure in only one program. But now, if we have the one-time initiative, peer-to-peer pathway, plus the comeback of the PNP, and continue to have a strong express entry strategy, the pressure gets divided among all these pathways, and we see more people being invited. And express entry points will eventually also come down because different people are choosing different pathways. So the competitiveness of the pool of express entry will reduce. Okay. And remember, the 109,000 applicants on express entry does not include those that are selected under the French priority category. These are a separate category that includes over 30,000 people just through French, okay? So 109 is Canadian experience class, is the in-demand occupations, okay? I will go back here to talk about the reduction of students and workers. That a lot of people got upset with those news, but again, the government has been a little bit sneaky in terms of how they are presenting the information, because in one hand, they reduced the students from 305,000 to 155,000 students planned to be accepted in 2026. But following the news, they announced that there is no cap for graduate students. If you're applying for a master's or a doctorate degree in a public institution, you are not included in that cap. So it's a way to say, hey, I'm reducing, but not reducing really, just, changing how you see things. And that's great. And we see actually a priority for highly educated people being in the works with IRCC, because earlier this year they also mentioned that they are considering a new category of occupations, including senior managers, researchers, and military personnel. And now there's this movement to prioritize students in the graduate streams. And even if you come for a doctorate degree, your application is processed as a priority in 2 weeks. Doesn't matter the country you are, okay? So we see there are great news about the students' pathways. If you are outside, for example, and planning to study in Canada, I would recommend, of course, if you're young, you don't have a undergrad, then start with the undergrad. 155,000 is plenty of allocations. And to be honest, we know that there was a big reduction in certain, for central countries specifically, where they found the most fraud and the most issues. So, for example, countries such as India, Bangladesh, these countries are suffering right now, but we don't see the same for countries that have a good history of compliance, such as Brazil, Latin America, European countries. With Asian countries like Japan, South Korea, we don't see issues, okay? So the reduction was mainly targeted to certain markets, I would say. And even it's not a considerable reduction if you see that they also eliminated some certain degrees from the cap, okay? Okay, so we talked all about it, okay? And the 3 priorities here, providing job opportunities to people who are already in Canada and supporting Francophone growth. So you see, all we hear is the government saying that they wanted to reduce immigration, but the Francophone immigration, it will continue to grow year per year, right? So we can consider strategy, either if you're in Canada or outside Canada, for you to combine your English with French as one of the immigration strategies for you to follow. This is definitely a good pathway because it is the priority of the government until 2029, okay? And as I mentioned, there's the comeback of provincial programs, and we also have other regional opportunities such as the Rural Community Immigration Pilot and Atlantic Immigration Program, for example, okay? So To conclude, more focus on economic migration, return of provincial immigration opportunities, priority given to skilled immigrants already in Canada, the one-time initiative for 33,000 skilled workers that are already currently in Canada contributing to the economy and paying taxes. They will have a support from the government of Canada to transition from temporary to permanent residency. A possible new criteria for senior management, research and development, and in-demand occupations. So if you are in one of these categories, also be ahead of the game and be ready to apply. Have your profile, have your baseline documents, have your strategy set, and start organizing your documents because that is probably coming. Okay. And if we're starting our plan, I would say try to stay away from the bigger cities such as Toronto and Vancouver. Try to move to smaller cities because we see that there is a preference of Canada to kind of spread out migration. And there are so many new regional programs that you can explore. And even within the PNP programs, for example, here in BC, you have additional points if you're outside Vancouver. In Ontario, you have specific selections for people outside Toronto. So it's definitely a good opportunity for you to, if you are considering moving, or even if you're in Canada, maybe it's a good idea to consider that in your planning, okay? And again, French continue to be a great opportunity to learn as an additional skill because can put you ahead of the game as well, okay? And business immigration, a lot of people ask about business immigration, especially because although all the great news about migration, business immigration was really affected. The quota came down from 5,000 to 1,000. And people were really upset. Programs such as Startup Visa became more competitive, continues to be accepted. I had a client that was accepted and received LOS just last week. But I would highlight the Alberta Foreign Graduate Entrepreneur Program, because even though it's business immigration, it counts under the PNP opportunity and can be a great program for people who want to establish a business to come to Canada, okay? All right. We talked about all of this, okay? I just want to say that if Canada is also receiving a little bit less students in the next years, the competitiveness becomes less, and we will see like an easy structure to follow for permanent residency in the months or years to come. Okay, so that's something that you have to consider as well, to put your hopes up and prepare with fresh eyes for what's coming, not focusing on what was in 2024, 2025. We already established it was a difficult year for immigration, but you have to look ahead, okay? Because immigration is like a cycle. There are moments of extreme growth and open doors. There are moments that the government needs to review and adjust. And that's what we have been through recently. But now I do believe that we are finishing that down curve and starting the line up. And this means that more opportunities are indeed coming, okay? Yeah, and we talked all about getting ready, but what to do to get ready, okay? Make sure your passport is valid. If it's expiring in the next 6 months or 1 year, maybe it's worth to anticipate its renewal. Make sure you are always ahead of the game if you're in Canada, and don't let your work permit or study permit to be 1 month away of the expiry date for you to plan what you're going to do to extend. I would say you got to be ahead of the game. You have to be looking at 8-9 months ahead before the expiration to decide what you're going to do to renew, to extend your work or study permit in Canada, okay? Always have your valid language test. The test is valid for 2 years. That's plenty of time for you to use that test for different strategies. So a lot of people, they don't want to take the test because they think if I do take the test, I will make an investment, there is a cost, right? And then what if this test is not valid when I need to apply for? Well, if you plan everything else, a strategy, the organization of your documents, focus on what you're going to do and what you need to do to be qualified, you'll use that test. Or it will serve you for at least 2 years. So don't think that's going to be a waste to do the test early. That's important to have always a valid test. As we discussed, education credential assessment, knowing your NOC code. And a lot of people actually need to understand what's the best NOC code to focus. Because sometimes, for example, for people that recently graduated in Canada, and they have a number of opportunities to pursue. They just fresh with the post-graduation work permit. They need to know what occupation they should prioritize that will give more chances of transitioning to permanent residency. So let's identify what the possible pathways that will give you the best result. A lot of people, for example, when they finish their studies, they get the post-graduation work permit and they say, well, I got 3 years of work permit. I don't need to think right now. I have time. I got a time. No, guys, 3 years passes like this. It is so fast. You got to be ready. You have to have a strategy to pursue a certain career, even in a different city, that will make sense for you. Okay? Translation of documents, police certificates, and eventually a medical exam. Okay? And it's important to know that time matters. The sooner you're ready, the better. And you have to respect the process and the time that are required to prepare as well, because, it takes time. It's not something that will define a strategy and you'll be ready right away. Sometimes you need a couple of months or a couple of years even to achieve the strategy that will help you, that it will enable you to transition to permanent residency. So the earlier you start, the more chances you have to optimize your strategy and achieve your goal. Okay? Yeah. And if you want our support, here at Visa, we start with initial consultation where we'll find the best option considering what you're looking for, right? What's your lifestyle, financial background, what's your career, what do you want to do in Canada? You want to transition careers, you want a new career, you want to enhance your current career. So we will discuss all those options and the pros and cons to determine plan A, plan B, and plan C. And then once we determine the options that you can pursue based on your background, we will provide you with a proposal for full support, full guidance throughout the journey, okay? And we'll be there for you throughout the development, throughout the organization of the documents, application, and hopefully the approval of either your visa or permanent residency in Canada.